Hey guys, this is Allison from Allykatkreations. How are you? It reached 95 degrees in New York City today. Not terrible. I was a little outside lifeguard for a very long time, so heat doesn't really bother me. But it's stuffy and there's a lot of pollen coming out. So after I did my oracle readings today, I had to take a little break. Before I begin, please hit that like button. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so already, and share because this might impact somebody in a good way. If you have it within you to help me out with a love donation, if you ever got anything out of my videos, knowledge, epiphanies, connecting dots, light bulb moments, please help out. It's very appreciated. The gratitude extends and it keeps me afloat. This might become a two-part reading based on time. I'm going to do the voice of man, which is at the wee beginning of the book. Very, very beginning of the book. And then I'm going to get into the Book of Jehovah. But that might be cut in half. I might do a couple of chapters there and then finish it off the next time. Again, with the Oahspe, I do jump around. I started this book to what Spirit wanted and what was relevant at the time. So you can go into the playlists, all the episodes there, show you what I have already covered, which was a lot. It's a big book. So I feel that going back to the beginning, reading the voice of man, and that this is short, and then starting the Book of Jehovih, I hope everybody's doing okay today. And I'm praying for all those who have been affected by the startup tornadoes, QLCS tornadoes, and all that fun stuff. I mean, there's hail the size of my hand. It's not good. Okay. The voice of man. O Jehovah, what am I that I should supplicate thee? Know I mine own weakness, or understand I the way of my thoughts? Thou hast placed before me most wonderful creations. They impress me, and my senses rise up in remembrance of the Almighty. Wherein have I invented one thought, but by looking upon thy works? How can I otherwise than remember my Creator, and out of thy creations, O Jehovah, find rich food for meditation all the days of my life? And yet, though I have appropriated the earth unto myself, I am not happy nor perfect withal. Misery and crime and selfishness are upon my people. No wonder why Spirit asked me to read this today. What is my weakness that I cannot overcome it? Or what is my strength that I succumb to their desires of the earth? I built up my belief and courage in thee, but ere I know the way of my weakness, I stumble and fall. Am I made that I shall be forever reproof to myself and a censor to my own behavior? How shall I say to this man or that, be thou pure and holy, O man? Are not my flesh and blood proof that man cannot be without sin? Oh, this corruptible self, this tendency to fall from the right way. Thou, O my Creator, hast proven before my senses every day of my life that thou alone art mighty in purity and truth. Oh, that I had a starting point wherefrom to estimate thy wonderful decrees, or could find a road in which I should never stumble. But yet, O Jehovah, I will not complain because of the way of thy works. Thou hast invented a limit to my understanding, whereby I am reminded of thee to call upon thy name. I perceive my own vanity, that whereas were knowledge mine, I should become less beholding unto thee. What am I, O Jehovah, without thee? Or within shall I find the glory of thy creations, but by the light of thy countenance. Thou broughtest me forth out of sin and darkness, and clothed me in light. I behold the smallness of myself in thy great works. Thou hast bound me to travel on the earth, to sojourn with beasts and all manner of creeping things, nor given me one attribute wherein I can boast over them, save in the power of destruction. The high firmament placed thou above me, the stars and moon and sun. I know thou hast been thither, but I am bound down in a little corner of thy works. I have not power to rise up to thy distant places, nor to know thy extended heavens. Nay, I have not power to shape my own size and stature, but all things take form and dimension, whether I will it or not. In thy own way are built the walls of the world, but their magnitude am I confounded. By the majesty of thy hand uphold, why have I vainly set up myself as the highest of thy works? My failures are worse than any other living creature under the sun. I cannot build my house in perfection like a bird's. My ingenuity cannot fashion a spider's net. I cannot sail up in the air like a bird, nor live in the water like the fish, nor dwell in harmony like the bee. The half of my offspring die in infancy. The multitude of my household are quarrelers, fighters, drunkards, and beggars. The best of my sons and daughters are less faithful than a dog. Oh boy. I can go forth to war to slay my brother, even whilst thy wide earth have room for all. Yeah, I accuse the earth with starvation and sin and untimely death. Oh, that I could school myself to boast not of my greatness, that I should be forever ashamed in thy sight, Jehovah. Until thee I will acknowledge my iniquities. I can hide nothing from the eyes of the Creator. Hear me then, O Father. I took up arms against my brother with great armies. I encompassed him about to despoil him. His widows and orphans I multiplied by the stroke of my sword. The cry of anguish that came out of their mouths I answered by the destruction of my brother's harvests. I might have a visitor in a second. My co-host here. Here she is. Feel bad, it's so hot. Hi. You gonna say hi to everybody? Can I go read this, Mama? To my captains and generals who showed great skill in killing, I built monuments in stones and iron. Yeah, I inscribed them from top to bottom with their bloody victories. And in my vanity, I called out to the young, saying, behold the glory of great men. These great monuments I have built to them. And the youth of my household were wedded with ambition for spoil. The example of my hand made them train themselves for warfare. To my colonials and generals, that's not colonels. and generals, I gave badges of gold. I called to the damsels, saying, come, a great honor I give to you. Ye shall dance with the officers of death. And they tripped up on tiptoe, elated by the honey of my words. O Jehovah, how have I not covered up my wickedness? How have I failed to make the flow of my brother's blood and the relish of Satan? To my destroying host, I have given great honor and glory. In the pretense of enforcing peace, I hewed my way in the flesh and blood. I made great pretensions in a kingdom. I called out to my people, saying, we must have a kingdom. I showed them no reason for it, but I bade them take up arms and follow me for patriotism's sake. And yet, what was patriotism? Behold, I made it as a something greater than thee, and thy commandment, thou shalt not kill. Yeah, by the cunning of my words, I taught them my brother was my enemy, and that to fall upon him and his people and destroy them was great patriotism. And they ran at the sound of my voice from my glory in the greatness of my kingdom, and they committed great havoc. Yeah, I built colleges for training my young men in warfare. I drew a boundary hither and thither, saying, this is my kingdom. All others are my enemies. I flattered the young men with the work of death. I said, yea, men of war, great shall be your glory. And their judgment was turned away from peace. I made them think that righteousness was to stand up for me and my country and to destroy my brother and his people. They built me forts and castles and arsenals without number. I called unto my people, saying, come, behold the glory of my defenses, which I built for you. And they gave me money and garrisons and ships of war and torpedoes, shouting, hurry for our kingdom. We have faith in these things more than in thee, our creator. Thus I led them away from thee. Their eyes are turned down in the way of death. By the might of my armies, I put away righteousness. I covered the earth over with drunkards and widows and orphans. To beggary I reduced them. But I weeded their pride by saying, behold, what great standing armies we have. To the men that say, there shall come a time of peace, when war shall be no more forever, I mocked and said, thou fool. I know that counts against me, O Father. I cannot hide my iniquity from thy sight. I have said war was a necessary evil to prevent too populous world. I turned my back toward the wide, unsettled regions of earth. With this falsehood in my mouth, I stood up before thee. Yeah, I cried out as if for the righteous, saying, I war for righteousness and for the protection of the weak. In the destruction of my brethren, I stood as a murderer, pleading this excuse. Stubbornly, I persisted in not seeing justice on the other side, whilst I cut down whom thou hadst created alive. Above the works of thy hand, I raised myself up as a pruning knife in thy vineyard. Yeah, more than this, I persuaded my sons and daughters that to war for me was to war for our Father in heaven. By such blasphemy led I them into ruin. And when the battle was over for a day, I cried out, behold, the glory of them that were slain for the honor of their country. Thus have I added crime to crime before thee, Jehovah, thus destroyed thy beautiful creation. Verily have I not one word in justification of my deeds before thee. Oh, that I have remained faithful with thee, Jehovah, but I invented gods unto the glory of the evil one. In one place I called out to my sons and daughters, saying, be ye Brahmins, Brahma, saved whoever so professeth his name. In another place I said, be ye Buddhists, Buddha saveth whoever calleth on his name. In another place I said, be ye Christians, Christ saveth whoever calleth on his name. In another place I said, be ye Mohammedans, Whoever soever saith, there is but one God, and Muhammad is his prophet, shall be indulgence without sin. Thus have I divided the earth, O Jehovah, into 4 great idolatries. Have I founded them, and into their hands put all manner of weapons of destruction, and they are become more terrible against one another than are the beasts of the forests. Oh, that I could put away these great iniquities which I raised up in everlasting torments to the earth. Verily, there is no salvation in any of these. Their people are forever destroying one another. They quarrel and kill for their respective religions, setting aside thy commandment, thou shalt not kill. Hi. Hi. So you burned witches, you killed the opposite religion because they didn't believe, no matter what religion you are. You persecute everybody because they're pagan, they're evil, they believe in Satan, they believe in this one, that one, that one, this one, that one. It's all fucking a matrix. It doesn't matter. Just saying. They love their own nation and hate all others. They set aside thy commandment, love thy neighbor as thyself. I guess a lot of people don't really love themselves. Because in my oracle readings today, unconditional love, especially for self. Sorry guys, my hair is tickling my back. They preach and pray insufficient truth, but not one of these people practices peace, love, and virtue in any degree commensurate with their understanding. These religions have not saved from sin any nation or city on the whole earth. In vain have I searched for a plan of redemption, a plan that would make the earth a paradise, and that the life of man a glory unto thee, and a joy unto himself. But alas, the 2 extremes, riches and poverty, have made the prospect of a millennium a thing of mockery. For one man that is rich, there are 1,000 poor, and their interests are an intermediable conflict with one another. Labor crieth out in pain, but capital smiteth him with a heartless blow. Nation is against nation, king against king, merchant against merchant, consumer against producer, ye man against man in all things upon the earth. Because the state is rotten, the politician feedeth thereon. Because society is rotten, the lawyer and court have riches and tumultuous feasts. Because the flesh of my people is rotten, the physician findeth a harvest of comfort. Now, O Jehovah, I come to thee. Thou holdest the secret of peace and harmony and goodwill amongst mortals. Give me of thy light, O Father. Show me the way of proceeding, that war and crime and poverty may come to an end. Open thou the way of peace and love and virtue and truth, that thy children may rejoice in their lives and glorify thee and thy works forever. Such is the voice of man, O Jehovah. In all the nations of the earth his voice raiseth up to thee, as thou spakest to Zarathustra and to Abraham and Moses, leading them forward out of darkness. O speak thou, Jehovah. Man hath faith in thee only. Thou alone wasn't sufficient in the olden time. Today thou alone art insufficient unto thy own creation. Speak thou, O Jehovah. Mic drop. Does this sound like something that's happening now? Does it seem like this is happening now? Because I totally think so. Oh, so humid. This is happening now. Now. This is happening now. And as I always say, there are so many people who have projects and things and creative ideas that never see the light of day because there's just no money backing it. But there are people out there that can back things, that will back things, but it has to be with the right people. But you're not giving everybody a fair chance. You know, when I tried to get a scholarship to go to college, I was too much of everything but what was needed to get money. And the stereotype was so abundant because of my last name, because of the color of my skin, because of all this stuff. The opportunities were not fair. Even to get into my master's program, it's all about money, not about knowledge. Although getting a master's in fine arts wouldn't have really gotten me anywhere because you have your talent, you just go to school to fine tune things and work with artists, but not many wanted to work with somebody who was into a, as Jerry Saltz from The Village Voice would put it, you're too Aristotelian, Allison. Too Aristotelian. Knock, knock, who's there? Did you read my thesis, Jerry Saltz? Oops, it's on metaphysics. And I'm going back now, like 2005, 4, 5. So that the voice of man, holy shit. It sounds like everything that we're going through right now. We're going through that reset, by the way. So this is the Book of Jehovah, wherein is revealed the 3 great worlds, Kapor, Atmospheria, and Etheria. As in all other Bibles, it is revealed that this world was created. So in this Bible, it is revealed how the Creator created it. As other Bibles have proclaimed heavens for the spirits of the dead, behold, this Bible revealeth where these heavens are, and the manner of glory and the work that the spirits of the dead enjoy, whereby the wisdom, power, love, and glory of the Almighty are magnified for the understanding of man. This is why this book is so damn important. And all the books that I read, but this one is important because this, you know, even though I can't pronounce the names and certain things, and it gets really frustrating, it's vital. Vital. Chapter 1. All was, all is, all ever shall be. Sounds like something out of the Kabbalion. The all spake, and motion was, and is, and ever shall be. And being positive was called he and him. The all motion was his speech. Ooh, very hermetic. He said, I am. Yep. And he comprehended all things, the seen and the unseen. I just did the outline to the Kabbalion on another video, guys. The 7 principles, let's see. Nor is there aught in all the universe but what is part of him. He said, I am the soul of all, and the all that is seen is of my person and my body. By virtue of my presence, all things are. By virtue of my presence is life. By virtue of my presence are the living brought forth into life. I am the quickener, the mover, the creator, the destroyer. I am first and last. Of two apparent entities am I, nevertheless, I am but one. These entities are the unseen, which is potent, and the seen, which is of itself impotent and cold corpore. With these two entities in likeness thereby of myself, made all the living, for as the life is the potent part, so is the corporeal part the impotent part. Chief over all that lives on the earth, I made man, male and female, made I them, and that man might distinguish me. I command him to give me a name. By virtue of my presence commanded I him, and man named me, not after anything in heaven or on the earth. In obedience to my will, named he me after the sounds the wind uttereth. And he said, Elohim, which is now pronounced Jehovah, and is written thus. Jehovah said, by virtue of my presence, created I the seen and the unseen worlds, and I commanded man to name them. And man named the seen worlds Kapor, and the unseen worlds Es. And the inhabitants of Kapor man named Kaporians, but the inhabitants of Es he called sometimes Esseans, and sometimes spirits, and sometimes angels. Jehovah said, I created the earth and fashioned it and placed it in the firmament. In the firmament. I like throwing that in there. It's in all the books. And my presence brought man forth a living being. A corporeal body gave I him, that he might learn corporeal things, and death I made, that he might rise in the firmament and inherit my Etherian worlds. To Es I gave dominion over Kapor. With Es I filled all place in the firmament. But Kapor I made into earths and moons and stars and suns, beyond number. Made I them, and I caused them to float in the places I allowed it to them. Es I divided into two parts, and I commanded man to name them. And he named one Etheria and the other Atmospheria. These are the three kinds of worlds I created, but I gave different densities to atmospherian worlds and different densities to the Etherian worlds. Law of one, anybody? Law of one? For the substance of my Etherian worlds, I created Eth, the most ratified. Out of Eth made I them, and I made Eth the most subtle of all created things, and gave to it power and place, not only by itself, but also power to penetrate and exist within all things, even in the midst of the corporeal worlds. And to Eth gave I dominion over both Atmospheria and Kapor. In the all highest place, created I the Etherian worlds, and I fashioned them of all shapes and sizes, similar to my corporeal worlds. But I made the Etherian worlds inhabitable, both within and without, with entrances and exits, and arches and curves, thousands of miles high and wide, and overruled I them with perfect mechanism, and in colors and movable chasms, and mountains in endless change and brilliancy. To them I gave motions and orbits and courses of their own. Independent made I them, and above all other worlds, in potency and majesty. Neither created I one Ethereal world like another in size or density, or in component parts, but every one differing from another, and with a glory matchless, each in its way. Note, I saw that, and I think it's a fly or a moth. It's bug time, and they're everywhere. Ethereal worlds I also created in the firmament, and I gave them places and orbits and courses for themselves. But atmospheric worlds I created shapeless and void of fixed form, for they are in process of condensation or dissolution, being intermediate in condition betwixt my Ethereal and my corporeal worlds. Of 3 degrees of density created I them, and I commanded man to name them, and one he called Ija, Ajai, and one Ajay, and one nebulae. But all of them are composed of the same substances, being like the earth, but rarefied. Nor is there on the earth or in one thing, even iron or lead or gold or water or oil or stones. But the same things are in my atmospheric worlds. As I have given light to the earth, so have I given light to many of them. And all such have I commanded man to call comets, and even so named them. And I also created atmospheria around about my corporeal worlds. Together made I them. Chapter 3. Thus spake Jehovah by the light of Cosmon, proclaimed he these things amongst the nations of the earth. Man looked upward in prayer, desiring to know the manner of all created things, both on earth and in heaven. And Jehovah answered him, saying, the whirlwind made I as a sign to man of manner of my created worlds. As thou beholdest the power of the whirlwind gathering up the dust of the earth and driving it together, know that even so do I bring together the Ajai and Ajay and nebulae in the firmament of heaven. By the power of the whirlwind create I the corporeal suns and moons and stars, and I commanded man to name the whirlwinds in the Ethereal firmament. And he named them vortices and work, according to their shape named by them. By the power of rotation, swift driving forth, in the extreme parts condense I the atmospheric worlds that float in the firmament, and these become my corporeal worlds. In the midst of the vortices made I them, and by the power of the vortices I turn them on their axes and carry them in the orbits I allotted to them. Wider than to the moons of a planet have I created the vortices, and they carried the moons also. Around about some of my corporeal worlds have I given nebulous belts and rings, that man might comprehend the rotation of my vortexing worlds. For each and every corporeal world created I a vortex first, and by its rotation and by the places in the firmament whither it travelleth, cause I the vortex to conceive the corporeal world. A great vortex created I for the sun, and within this vortex subject to it made I the vortices of many of the corporeal worlds. The sun vortex I caused to rotate, and I gave it power to carry other vortices within it, according to their density and position, are they thus carried forth and around about the sun. Think not, O man, that I created the sky a barren waste and void of use, even as man in the corporeal form is adapted to the corporeal earth, so is he in the spiritual form adapted to my Ethereal worlds. 3 great estates have I bestowed on man, the corporeal, the atmospheric, and the Ethereal. Chapter 4. Man perceived the general foundation of the world, and he prayed that his eyes might be opened for a sign in heaven. And Jehovah answered him, saying, the clouds in the air I bring into view suddenly. By the different currents of the wind make I thus the unseen visible and tangible to man's senses. In like manner do I cause ethereal currents to bring forth Ajay and Ajay and nebulae prior to making corporeal worlds. In all the universe have I made the unseen to rule over the seen. Let the formation of the clouds stand in the view of man on earth, that he may bear witness to the manner of the unseen becoming seen. Man perceived, and he prayed for a sign of duration, and Jehovah answered him, saying, behold, the tree which hath sprung up out of the ground and fulfilled his time, it falleth and rotteth and returned to the earth. But lo, the wind, which thou seest not, never cease to blow. Even so is the comparative duration of all things. Think not, O man, that corporeal things are annihilated because they disappear. For as a drop of water evaporateth and riseth in the air as unseen vapor, so do all corporeal things, even earth and stones and gold and silver and lead, become as nothing in the firmament of heaven in course time. Things that man seeth created I will be with a beginning and an end, but the unseen I made of endless duration. The corporeal man made I belonging to the seen, but the spiritual man made I as one within the unseen and everlasting. As a corporeal man beholdeth corporeal things, so doth the spiritual man follow upward the evaporated corporeal entities of things. As corporeal things are tangible to the corporeans, so are things tangible to the spirits of the dead. As I cause water to rise upward as vapor and take a place in the air above, let it be a sign and testimony of other places in atmospheria, whereon dwell the spirits of the lower heaven. As I made a limit to the ascent of the clouds, so made I a limit to the places of the different kinds of distances and substances in atmospheria, the more subtle and potent to the extreme, and the more dense and impotent nearer to the earth, according to the condition of these different plateaus in atmospheria, where they be neither the earth or high above. So shall the spirit of man take its place in the first heaven, according to his diet and desires and behavior, so shall he dwell in spirit on the plateau to which he hath adapted himself during his earth life. For I made the power of attraction manifest in all things before man's eyes, that he might not err, that like should attract, like made I them. Man sought to know the progress of things. Jehovah answered him, saying, open thine eyes, O man. There is a time of childhood, a time of genesis, a time of old age, and a time of death to all men. Even so is it with all the corporeal worlds I created. First as vapor the vortex carrieth forth, and as it condenseth, its friction engendereth heat, and it is molten, becoming a globe of fire in heaven. Then it taketh its place as a newborn world, and I set it in the orbit prepared for it. In the next stage, I bring it into Simu, for its ripe for the bringing forth of living creatures, and I bestow the vegetable and animal kingdoms. Second density. Next it entereth Hotu, for it is past the age of begetting, even as the living who are in dotage. Next to it entereth Adu, and nothing can generate upon it. Then cometh Uz, and it is spirited away into unseen realms. Thus create I, and thus dissipate planets, suns, moons, and stars. My examples are before all men. My witnesses are without number. I raise the tree up out of the ground. I give it a name, to bring forth fruit, and the barrenness, and the death, and dissolution. I prepared the new field, with rich soil, bringing forth the old field that is exhausted, and man shall weigh the progress and destiny of the whole world. Let no man marvel because of the size of the mammoth and the Ichthyosaurus. I know I just butchered that. No way Allison can pronounce that without losing my teeth, by the way. For there was a time for them, as there is a time for the infusia of this day. I have given thee a sign, O man, in the queen of the honey bee, because of the change of the cell cometh she forth a queen, even from the same manner of germ as the other bees. Be wise, therefore, and remember that the earth is not in the place of the firmament as of old. Let this be a testimony to thee of the growth, the change, and the travail of the earth. Nevertheless, O man, that seen and the unseen are but parts of my person. I am the unity of the whole. Again, very hermetic. Chapter 5. Man perceived the magnitude and glory of the corporeal world. He said, how shall I speak of thy great works, O Jehovah, and of thy wisdom and power? Shall I open my mouth before thee? I look upon thy countless stars, suns, and moons spread out over the heavens. The millions of years thou hast driven them on in the never-ending firmament. Processions in and out and around about of mighty worlds by thy breath go forth. O thou all highest, how shall I hide my insignificance? I cannot create the smallest things alive, nigh, nor change the color of a hair on my head. What am I that hasn't seen me? Tell me, O my creator, whence came life? This unseen within me that is conscious of being. Tell me how all the living came into life. Jehovah had the words of man, and he answered him, saying, let a sign be given to man that he may comprehend Samu. Thereupon Jehovah caused the jellyfish and the green scum of the water to be permanently coming forth in all ages, that man might understand the age of Samu, when the earth and the shores by the water and the waters also were covered over with commingled atmosphere and corporeal substance. And the substance was called Samu because by Jehovah's presence quickened he it into life, and thus made he all the living, both the vegetable and the animal worlds. Not that Samu is jellyfish or the green scum of the water, for the earth is this day produceth not Samu abundantly. Nevertheless, the jellyfish and the green scum of water are signs of that which was in the day of earth. Jehovah said, because of my presence quickened I into life all that live, or ever have lived, because I am male and female, even in my likeness, thus made I them, because I am the power to quicken into life, so in likeness of me, thus made I them, and with power to bring forth, according to their respective places, created I the living, not in pairs only, but in hundreds of pairs, and thousands and in millions, according to thy representative places, and the light upon Samu, so quicken I them in their color, adapted to the dwelling places. Each and every living thing created I new upon the earth, of a kind, each to itself, and not one thing that created I out of another. Let a sign be upon the earth, that man in his darkness may not believe the one thing. Animal changeth and become another. Thereupon Jehovah gave permission for different animals to bring forth a new living animal, which should be unlike either its mother or father, but he caused the new product to be barren. Jehovah said, and this shall be testimony before all men, that I created each and all the living after their own kind only. Such is my person and my spirit, being from everlasting to everlasting. And when I bring a new world into the time of Samu, lo and behold, my presence quicketh the substance into life according to the locality and the surroundings, so do I bring forth the different species, for they are flesh of my flesh and spirit of my spirit. To themselves give I themselves, nevertheless, they are all members of my person. As a testimony to man, behold, the earth was once a globe of liquid fire. Mulsapem. Nor was there any seed thereon, but in due season I rained down Samu on the earth, and by virtue of my presence quickened I into life all the living. Without seed created I the life that is in them. Chapter 6. I might get through all this. When man comprehended the earth, he looked upward, and Jehovah saw him and knew the desires of his soul. So Jehovah sent his son Uz, and Uz spake, saying, Hear me, O man, the mysteries of heaven and earth will I clear up before thy judgment. Thou art the highest and comest to the cheapest of all kingdoms. From great Jehovah shalt thou learn wisdom, and none shall gainsay thee. Bethink thee, O man, of the magnitude of thy father's kingdoms, and his places in the firmament. Save I take thee into heaven above. Thou canst not comprehend the places thereof. Men then rose up in spirit and ascended into the firmament, for his spirit had crystallized into separateness. Keyword, crystallized. What's happening with us? What are we turning into? And Uz and Es ascended with him, speaking the voice of the Father. And man beheld that each and every thing in the firmament was orderly, and still each to itself located. Then spake Es, saying, Behold, O man, as a farmer soweth corn in one place, and wheat in another, and roots in another, and flax, everything in a separate place, even so doth Jehovah store the ingredients of which worlds are made, everything in its place. The substance of the iron in one place, the substance of the stones in another, the substance of the vegetable kingdom in another, and even so of the substance of animal kingdom, and the oils and sand, for he hath places in the firmament of heaven for all of them. These that thou sawest are the Jahai, and the Jehe, and the nebulae, and amidst them in places there is Samu also. Let no man say, Yonder is hydrogen only, and yonder oxygen only. The divisions of the substances of his creations are not as man would make them. All the elements are to be found not only in places near at hand, but in distant places also. When the Father driveth forth his words in the heavens, they gather a sufficiency of all things. So also cometh it to pass that when a corporeal world is yet new and young, it is carried forth, not by random, but purposely in the region suited to it. Hence there is a time for Samu, a time for falling nebulae, to bury deep the forests and Samuian beds, to provide coal and manure for a time thereafter. So is there a time when the earth passeth, a region in the firmament, when sand and oil are rained upon it and covered up, and gases bound and sealed up for the coming generations of men. And man said, I am ashamed in thy sight, O Jehovah. I looked upward and said, Behold the sky, it is nothing. Then I said, It is true, the corporeal worlds are made of condensed nebulae, but I saw not the wisdom and glory of thy works. I locked thee up in coincidence and happenings. Thy unseen world hath become seen, the unreal hath become the real. Oh, that I had been mindful of thee. Oh, that I had not put thee afar, nor imagined laws and decrees. Teach thou me, O Jehovah, how was the beginning of man? How was it worth the first of the living that thou broughtest forth? Jehovah said, Have I not declared myself in the past in my works? Have I not provided thousands of years in advance? As I have shown systems in the corporeal worlds, know thou, O man, that system prevaileth in the firmament. To the tree I gave life, to man I gave life, and spirit also. And the spirit I made was separate from the corporeal life. Out of Samu I made man, and man was but as a tree, but dwelling in Hak, and I called him Asu, Adam. I looked over the wide heavens that I have made, and I saw countless millions of spirits of the dead that had lived and died on other corporeal worlds before the earth was made. I spake in the firmament, and my voice reached to the utmost places, and there came in the answer to the sounds of my voice, myriads of angels from the roadway in heaven, where the earth traveleth. I said to them, Behold, a new world have I created. Come ye and enjoy it. Ye shall learn from it how it was with other worlds in ages past. There alighted upon the new earth millions of angels from heaven, but many of them had never fulfilled a corporeal life, having died in infancy. And these angels comprehended not procreation nor corporeal life. And I said, Go and deliver Asu from darkness, for he shall also rise in spirit to inherit my Etherian worlds. And now was the earth in the later days of Samu, and the angels could readily take on corporeal bodies for themselves, and out of the elements of the earth cloth for themselves by force of their will with flesh and bones. By the side of the Asuans took they on corporeal forms. And I said, Go ye forth and partake of all that is on the earth, but partake ye not of the tree of life, lest in that labor ye become procreators, and as if dead to the heavens whence ye came. But those who had never learned corporeal things, being imperfect in wisdom, comprehension, not Jehovah's words, and they dwelt with the Asuans, and were tempted, and partook of the fruit of the tree of life. And lo and behold, they saw their own nakedness. And there was born of the first race, Asu, a new race called man. And Jehovah took the earth out of the travail of Samu, and the angels gave up their corporeal bodies. Jehovah said, Because ye have raised up those that shall be joint heirs in heaven, ye shall tread the earth with your feet, and walk by the sides of the newborn, being guardian angels over them. For they are of your own flesh and kin. Fruit of your seed have I quickened with my spirit. The man shall come forth with a bright birthright into my Etherian worlds. As I have quickened the seed of the firstborn, so will I quicken all seed to the end of the earth. And each and every man child and woman child born into the life will I quicken with a new spirit, which shall proceed out of me at the time of conception. Neither will I give to any spirit of the higher or lower heaven power to enter a womb or a fetus of a womb and be born again. As the corporeal earth passeth away, so shall pass away the first race, Asu. But as I pass not away, so shall not pass away the spirit of man. Chapter 7. Jehovah said, Let a sign be given to the inhabitants of the earth, that they may comprehend Daha in the firmament of heaven. For even as I breatheth to the earth a time for creating the living, and a time for angels to come and partake of the first fruits of morality and immorality, so shall man at certain times and seasons receive testimony from my hosts in heaven. And Jehovah caused the earth and the family of the sun to travel in an orbit, the circuit of which requireth of them 4,700,000 years. And he placed in the line of the orbit at distance of 3,000 years Etherian lights, with which places, as the earth passeth through, angels from the second heaven come into its corporeal presence. As ambassadors they come in companies of hundreds and thousands and tens of thousands, and these are called the Etherian hosts of the Most High. Not as single individuals come they, not for a single individual mortal come they. And Jehovah came and gave this sign to man on earth, which is to say, in the beginning of the light of Danha, the spirits of the newly dead shall have power to take upon themselves the semblance of corporeal bodies, and appear and talk face to face with mortals. Every 3,000 years gave Jehovah this sign on earth, that those who learn the powers and capacities of such familiar spirits might bear testimony in regard to the origin of man on earth. That might be happening right now. Jehovah said, and when it shall come to pass in any of the times of Dan Ha, that these signs are manifested, man shall know that the host of the Most High comes soon after. Let him who will become wise enumerate the great lights of my serpent. For in such times I set aside things that are old and establish my chosen anew. In the time of the earth, when man was brought forth from the mortal to the immortal life, the earth passed beyond Samu, and the angels of heaven remained with corporeal men, but not in the semblance of mortals, but as spirits, and by virtue of their presence strove to make man wise and upright before Jehovah. Upon the earth, the number of such angels was millions. To these angels spake Jehovah, saying, behold the work ye have taken in my hand. It was commanded to you all to partake of all the fruits of the earth, save of the fruit of the tree of life, which is of the knowledge of the earth and heaven, lest ye lose your inheritance in Ethera. Behold, ye now have sons and daughters on the earth. By your love to them are ye become bound spirits of the lower heaven, until ye redeem them in the wisdom and power, even to the 6th generation. Ye shall not again arise and inherit my emancipated heavens. 6th generation, I'm curious what that means. If it's 6 cycles or 6 generations, we are on the 6th cycle now. That'd be sweet. To which end ye shall be co-workers with one another in system and order. In my name shall ye become an organic body, and know as the heaven of the earth, or lower heaven, which shall travel with the earth. And I will allot unto you a chief who is wise and experienced in finding heavenly kingdoms, and he shall appoint from amongst you officers and messengers, and ashars and asefs, and inuers, and ye shall be enumerated and apportioned unto your labor and places, like unto my other lower heavens on other worlds. And he who is chief shall be called God of this heaven and the earth, unto his making bestow I them. And God shall have a council and throne within his heavenly city, and the place shall be called Horde, because it is the first kingdom of God in this firmament. This firmament, this one. And God shall rule on his throne, for it is his, and his council shall rule with him. In my name shall they have dominion over angels and mortals belonging to the earth. And God shall appoint chiefs under him, who shall go down and dwell on the earth with mortals. And such chiefs' labor shall be with mortals for their resurrection. And these chiefs shall be called lords, for they are gods of land, which is the lowest rank of my commissioned gods. And God and his lords shall have dominion from 200 years to 1,000 or more years, but never more than 3,000 years, according to the regions of Dan, light, into which I bring the earth. So shall be the terms of the office of my gods and my lords. Office. It says office. And God and his Lord shall rise up officers to be thy successors. By him and them shall they be appointed and crowned in my name. At the termination of the dominion of my God and his lords, they shall gather together in these my bound heavens all such angels as been prepared in wisdom and strength for resurrection to my Etherian kingdoms. And these angels shall be called brides and bridegrooms to Jehovah, for they are mine and in my service. And to God and his lords with the brides and bridegrooms will I send down from Etheria ships. In the time of Dan, my Etherian gods and goddesses shall the ships descend to these heavens and receive gods and his lords with the brides and bridegrooms and carry them up to the exalted regions I have prepared for them. And all such an ascend shall be called a harvest. Going on now, unto me through my God and lords. And the time of my harvest shall be according to each Dan. which is 200 years, 400 years, 600 years, and 500 years, and these shall be called my lesser cycles, because they are the times of the tables of prophecy, which I give unto my servants. But at no other times, nor in any other way, shall my harvest ascend to my emancipated worlds in Ethera. 7 Dans have I created for each and every Dan Ha, and 6 generations of mortals have I given unto each Dan. The angels understood the commandments of Jehovah according to their knowledge in the Etherian heavens, being heirs of other planets and having died in infancy, having matured in these worlds, but they have understood not the Creator according to the practice of the lower heavenly kingdoms, wherefore their knowledge was incomplete. Jehovah said, I condemn ye not, because ye have become joint procreators with the Asuns, for ye have done 2 services unto me, which are to teach yourselves corporeal things, that ye may understand and sympathize with corporeans, and secondly, because ye have caused the earth to become peopled with such as are capable of immortality. Behold ye now what shall happen on the earth, such as are of your flesh and kin, who cohabitate together shall rise in wisdom and virtue, but such of them as cohabit with the Asuns will bring forth heirs into the descending grade of life. The first shall bring forth heirs unto everlasting life, but the second shall bring forth heirs that shall go out in darkness. In the dominion of which matters your God and Lords will instruct you, that ye may by inspiration and otherwise learn to control the behavior of mortals unto everlasting life, and that these labors be not too severe upon you. I create the Dans and Danhas in the firmament, wherein ye may be delivered from the watch by other angels from other worlds coming to exchange with you. This also do I put unto you, that to rule over mortals to virtue, by your own wills governing them in all things, is contrary to my commandments. For what honor hath any man if made to do a thing? But ye shall give mortals of my light, leaving them to choose. Better it is for them to suffer some than to grow up in ignorance of the strings of disobedience. Behold, I make this a willing service on your part, because ye have bound your affections on the earth to your own kin. Ye willingly become guardian angels over mortals. Yet I made not a separate law unto you, as it is with you. So shall it be with the spirits of these mortals. When they are born into the world, they will also desire to become guardian angels over the mortal kin. But these spirits, never having known my higher heavens, will be unsuitable for the new office of Ashars. They would be but the blind leading the blind, to prevent which God and the Lord shall provide these spirits in the first resurrection with places to dwell in, with occupations and opportunities for education. For I desire them not to remain bound to the earth, but to rise up and inherit my Etherian kingdoms. And in this also shall ye be discreet in governing them, giving them the light of my heavens, with some liberty to choose and to perfect themselves. Otherwise, they would only be slaves in heaven, according to their weakness or strength. So shall ye provide for these new spirits entering my world. Therefore, such of you as are appointed by my God and my lords, are guardians over mortals, shall be called Ashars, and ye shall report to your respective lords according to the section of the earth where ye may be. Of many watches shall be the Ashars. And such of you as are appointed to receive the spirits of the dead into heaven shall be called SFs, and ye shall report to your respective lords and their kingdoms. And the Ashar shall make a record of every mortal of the grade of his wisdom and good works. And when a mortal dieth, and his spirit is delivered to the Asifs, the record shall be delivered with him, and the Asifs receiving shall deliver such spirit with the record into such place in these heavens as is adapted to his grade, where he shall be put to labor and to school according to the place of the resurrections which I created. And ye shall thus become organic in heaven, with rulers and teachers and physicians, and with capitals and cities and provinces, with hospitals and nurses and schools and factories. Even so shall ye ultimately inspire man on the earth to do the same things. And mortals that are raised up to the dominion over mortals shall be called kings and emperors. As my gods and my lords are called my sons, so shall kings and emperors be called sons of God. Through him shall they be raised up to their places and given dominion unto my glory. Chapter 8. Jehovah and God shall cause a record to be kept in heaven and of the dominions and his lords, and he and they shall enjoin it upon their successors forever to keep a record. Gosh, records. And in the times of my harvest, a copy of these records shall be taken up to my Ethereal kingdoms and filled with my Orion chiefs and archangels in the roadway of the traveled of the great serpent, for their deliberations as to the progress and management of the inhabitants of the earth and her kingdoms. Think not, O ye angels, at the resurrection of your heirs and their descendants that come up out of the earth is any easy matter and steady progress, devoid of mishaps and woeful darkness. The angels unto you shall become at times rebellious and defiant, disregarding your laws and decrees, and they shall desert your heavenly places and go down to the earth in millions and hundreds of millions. And they shall drive away the Ashars, and they assume guardianship over mortals. But they shall develop no righteousness under the sun, but they will inspire mortals to war and destruction. And these angels will themselves take the war and evil on every hand within the place of your heavens. With the foul gases of atmosphere shall they make weapons of war and places of torment. With these elements shall they make suffocating hells in order to cast one another in chaos. And mortals who shall be slain in war shall be born in spirit in chaos on the battlefields. In chaos shall such spirits enter as the S world, and they shall not know that they are dead as to earth life, but shall keep fighting right and left. And the enemy shall take enemy in these heavens and cast them into the place of torment which they shall have built, and they shall not know peace or wisdom. And the work of your heavens shall become a nothing. And ye shall turn to going about delivering hells and the spirits in chaos, and your labor shall be exhaustive. Verily shall you cry out, because ye came and peopled the earth. This also have I created possible unto my creations. For both angels and mortals shall learn to know the elements of the heavens and earth, and to know the trials of love and misfortune. Nor have I made wisdom possible unto any man or angel that knoweth not my elements and the extremes of evil and good which I created. But in the times of the great darkness, which shall come upon the earth and these heavens, lo, I will bring the earth into Danha, and my Etherians shall come in my name and deliver them. And again for another cycle shall they be left with the lessons given unto them, but they shall fall again in course of time. But again shall I deliver them through my gods and goddesses, will I cause them to comprehend the magnitude of my creation. As ye travel from heaven to heaven in atmospheric ships, even so shall ye inspire mortals to build corporeal ships and sail across the oceans, that inhabitants of different divisions of the earth may become known to one another. And when the inhabitation of the earth shall be completed, and the nations shall have established civil communion around from east to west, in the same time will I bring the earth into Cosmon era, and my angel ambassador, gods and goddesses, shall render up the records of these heavenly kingdoms. Through them will I reveal unto mortals the creation of my worlds and the history and domain of my gods and lords on the earth, even from the day down to the time of Cosmon. And Jehovah caused the angels of atmosphere to assemble together and organize the first kingdom of the heaven of earth. And the place was called Horde, because it was the place of the first organic abiding place for the first god of this world. And Horde was situated over and above the mountains of Aton in Uruqui, to the eastward of you, and of that country therein after called the continent of Pan. Thus ended the inorganic habitation of earth and her atmosphere. And this ends, mic drop. The ends of Book of Jehovih. Pan is real. Pan's real. Does not sound like what we're going through right now. Because it is. I don't know if Pan's going to raise, but Lemuria and Atlantis might. Land bridges might raise. They're finding the arcs and pyramids all over the floor of the ocean. Will they rise? There's a lot to take in from that. And I was going to separate it, but can't. Very important, all those parts. So I hope you enjoyed that section. Please like, share, and subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so already. Please help me out. If you get anything out of my work, light bulbs, epiphanies, you connect dots to certain things, and you have it within you to give me a love donation, that is very appreciated. I've hit hard times, and this month should be very interesting, to say the least. But I can't continue this work without you. It's come to that point, and I would like to continue to do it. I'm going to rush read through a lot of different books, so at least if I disappear, there is plenty of work to go over. But I can't do this without you guys. The state I live in is near impossible to live in, and I am currently looking to relocate. But even that becomes difficult because I have no funds. So with that, I'll leave it there. Please help if you can. It's very appreciated. Sending each and every one of you love and light wherever you are in the world. Please be good. Please be safe. Please be seen. Shield and bubble your energy. And I'll see you on the next one. Bye, guys.